Today we're going to install the JSP Beams J160 Reverse Lockout Shifter. You're going to start by removing the rubber boot at the base of the shifter assembly. Underneath you're going to find 4 M6 10mm head bolts. You're going to remove each one of those individually. Once all of the bolts are removed, the shifter should remove easily out of the housing. Set the shifter aside, and now you can remove the 4 M8 bolts that hold the shifter stock to the tail shaft of the transmission using a 12mm socket. Once all the hardware is off, you can peel the dust cover off the bottom of the stock, and you should be able to wiggle the shifter stock off of the tail shaft and set it aside. The rubber boot should also slide off backwards and pull off the back of the transmission pretty easily. The next thing that we're going to do is remove the roll pin off of the shifting sleeve on the back of the transmission here. This roll pin holds this shifting sleeve accurately onto the selector shaft, and once it's out we're going to set it aside because we're going to reuse it with the JSP kit. The last thing we're going to do is take off this M8 12mm head bolt, and this is the last thing holding the shifter sleeve onto the transmission. Once this is out, set it aside because it's also going to get reused. So what's included in the kit? You get the reverse lockout shifter, you get a steel lever, a steel sleeve, your steel shifting rod, a stainless steel reverse stop, and 2 pairs of aluminum spacers. This aluminum stock, you'll use the thicker spacers, and if you have this steel stock, you're going to use the thinner spacers, and they're labeled just in case you forget. The first step on assembly is to take this shifter sleeve and slide it onto the back of the transmission. Before you slide it on though, take a rag and clean the surface to make sure that it's really clean. This is a precision fit, but should slide on pretty easily. You're going to align the hole, and you're going to reuse the bolt from the original shifter sleeve to align this shaft so that you can press the roll pin in. When I'm working on transmissions that are outside of the car on a table, I like to use something to support the selector shaft while I'm hammering roll pins. In this case, I'm just using a block of aluminum so that when I hammer the roll pin, it doesn't put the shock or the impact directly onto the shaft. Once the roll pin's all the way in, you're just going to go ahead and tighten down that M8 12mm head bolt all the way. The next thing that you're going to install is this shifting lever. It can be mounted in 2 positions, a forward position and a back position. In this case, we're going to mount it in the forward position using the included stainless steel shoulder bolts. After these bolts are finger tight, I like to check the clearance between the tail shaft and the lever itself to make sure that nothing's aligned incorrectly. After everything looks good, you're going to go ahead and torque down these 2 bolts to 22 foot-pounds. After those are torqued, you're going to go ahead and take your shifter spacers and mount them onto the tail shaft. Because we had an aluminum stock, we're going to use these thicker spacers. They're a precision fit, so they might require a little bit of pressing to get them in place. Since we're mounting our shifter in the forward position, we're going to take the second longest bolts here and put them in the rearmost holes to attach the spacers onto the tail shaft. So here's what we have so far. We have our shifter sleeve and shifter lever attached onto the selector shaft. We also have our shifter spacers attached to our tail shaft. Now let's install the actual shifter. First start by making sure that the lower bushing is aligned straight with the bottom of the shifter assembly so that it slides easily into the lever. Use the included M8 hardware to attach the shifter housing onto the top of the transmission. Go ahead and tighten down all 4 of these bolts. Now take the stainless steel shifting lever and install it into the top of the shifter assembly. Because this is able to rotate from left and right, it can be adjusted for left-hand drive cars and right-hand drive cars. So now's the time to adjust which direction you want the shifting lever to face before you tighten down the screws. Last step is to install the reverse lockout stop. This stainless steel stop attaches to the top of the housing with the included hardware. Make sure to leave these slightly loose so that you can adjust the stop before tightening them down. Our goal here is to keep the stop aligned as straight as possible with this clevis assembly. The stop itself can slide in and out so that you can adjust the position in which the lock engagement happens. Take the shifter into the 1-2 position and press the stop up against the pin. Again, make sure that it's aligned straight with this clevis. Now tighten down the top screws just snug. Check the movement of the shifter and make sure that it freely goes into first and second gear without any type of difficulty. Once you're sure that everything is operating correctly, you can go ahead and tighten down the screws from the stop. Finally, check the shifter movement through all of the gears, including pressing down on the shifter and making sure that you're able to go into reverse gear. And that's it. Put all your interior back together, put your shift knob on, and go for a drive.